back, everyone, to Master of the Universe Horror Podcast. Chair's getting over like a motherfucker. So, me and Christopher J finally did it, a real franchise we had talked about doing, Insidious, finishing that one up. But this is it, the big old enchilada, the way they like to say it in basketball, the whole enchilada. We did the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, completed as of today. Today we're doing A Nightmare on Elm Street, the 2010 remake. Christopher J, how we doing tonight? How's my bitch doing? I just thought about that the other day.
I just did the Bruce Pritchard there opening a fucking beer can right as the podcast started.
There you go, Daddy. He's like, how you doing today, Bruce? And then he does the whole Miller time and shit. It's Miller time. So, Chris, dude, you've heard me go back and forth with this film. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's one of those films. You know, I've like I just said, I've gone back and forth on some bitch. Tell me about your time watching it for the first time, because this is one of the very few times that you've told me you've seen a horror movie, and you actually saw it in theaters, as a matter of fact. So tell me that story, dude.
Yeah, April of 2010. It was that 1 week I had off, like after I quit Harlan Clark and was about to start at Nationwide. And I was dating someone at the time. Mm-hmm. And no, it doesn't start with the letter N. And me and her went to the theater to see it on, I think it was a Wednesday night, Thursday night. And yeah, I mean, it's just, I had never seen any Nightmare on Elm Street movies before. I knew nothing about Freddy Krueger or, sleep deprivation stuff and all that, and dream killing and all that shit. I just simply was like, okay, we're going on this date, we're going to go to see a movie, and, that kind of thing. And I was like, wow. And it really, like, it was an intense movie. I mean, like I didn't, go home with the lights on or anything, but it just was like, I won't get into it now because we got a podcast to do this, but the body of it, and then really the ending of it, was like, whoa.
Oh yeah, exactly. Like like you just said, I had thought about the ending, so of course, like you said, we'll get to it. Yeah, I grew up a Freddy fan. If y'all have heard any of the previous fucking podcasts, y'all know that. So when I heard, like, just before this, they had just remade the Texas Chainsaw, not just remade, but Platinum Dooms, the producers, or whatever you want to call them, did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. I think Halloween had already been remade, and there was another one. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but they're basically going through the remake phase. And Friday the 13th. How can I forget?
Which is another one I saw in theaters when that came out.
Yeah, I saw that one too when it came out in theaters. We'll save that for the 2009 remake of it, and I'll tell that story.
And can I tell you, I saw that in the theater on the south side, and I was like,
me too. I saw it on the Mayan theater on the south side, dude, when that came out. Yeah.
But see, your dad has this, like, that was, I think your dad was telling me one time that he's a big fan of the Mayan Theater. He used to go there as a teenager.
I don't know. I don't even know if that was there since back then. So
he was telling me in the 80s, like, he had been there, like, with his buddies and stuff like that. They used to go there. But anyway, I was on the one by McCreeless, and I was like, as it was President's Day weekend, and I was like, you fucking low-life scum, bringing fucking children into a movie. Like, they were bringing, like, 2- and 3-year-old babies crying in the theater. Like, what?
Yeah, no shit, right? That's pretty funny. So, yeah, I saw this in theater, and when it first came out, I was like, wow, this was good, And then, because I wasn't really into critiquing movies, and I still, I don't really critique it, but I kind of, I'm more aware, I guess, now than I was before. Before, you would just sit there and you watch it and that's it. Now I kind of think ahead, like a lot of shit's going through my mind when I watch a film. But I loved the film when it came out, and then after that I kind of started hating it because of some reasons we'll get to. And they still are problems in the film, but there's no reason to say it's horrible. Like, there's some magical film out there that's absolutely perfect. Scarface, Like, there's there's a problem with all films, But anyway, let's go ahead and get into it. Released in 2010. How much did this bad boy make, Christopher J?
Well, April of 2010, And the budget was $35 million. Worldwide did $115.6 million, of which $63 million was domestic, i.e. the United States.
Yeah, so it did pretty well, but a lot of people. But even though it did well, there was a lot of backlash on the film because of some of the stuff. At least, I mean, I'll get to. I don't know about you, Jerry. So they didn't have a sequel, and I was disappointed because at the time, right away you're like, oh, what are they going to follow this up with? Because they did a pretty good job of kind of covering a few bases, at least for the first 3 films. On this one, they didn't go all out to cover them, but they did a little kind of, they added some things in there. Like, I didn't realize it till I actually watched the film, and I was like, wow, this is kind of like covering this and that, and I was interested to see that, but of course it didn't happen. And this one kicks off really good right away. It kicks off good, but it also kicks off in a bad way. We get our first death, so it sets the tone. And we got Jackie Earle Haley as Freddy. I thought he did a pretty good job. The only problem I have with Jackie is the makeup.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I just got to say, Jackie Earle Haley, in my opinion, did a superb job.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you that the facials, the makeup was a little too different from the original Freddy. I mean, it's fine to be different, of course. You're going to be different, I mean, no matter what. But I thought it was just too much of a departure from the facials of the original. But still, superb job. Like, I mean, that character, I mean, even 10 years ago at age 27 to here I am 10 years later, age 37, like, that gets in your head. Like, you sit there and you watch and you think to yourself, like, fuck, man, if I had someone... I'm 37 years old. If I had someone haunt me like that, like, I'd be fucking scared. I mean, the way he talks, and the way he fucking talks to these fucking teenagers, like,
it's
like
good,
fucking,
right? Yeah.
Oh man.
I didn't realize how good it was till I was rewatching it. Like I had told you, I was like, I really don't want to see this one. It's a chore. And then, because I had it in my head that like only the first 20, 30 minutes were good, and that is like the best parts. Like at least. For being a one-person show just about with Chris, but it gets better story-wise. I like where it goes. But anyway, so it starts off with Dean. And the one problem I have with this film is that we really don't get to know Dean. And Dean, I think, as little as we get to see him, like, 5-7 minutes of film, like, he seems pretty interesting. He's a good actor, I think. He doesn't look like he's in high school, but... I would have liked to have a lot more time with these kids, and I think that's like my biggest problem with them. Kind of like just saying it right out now because I don't want to be harping on it the entire podcast. Is that I actually do like these kids, but it doesn't seem like we spend enough time to care about them. Like when Jesse dies, which we'll get to. Like I don't like I was telling myself, I'm like, when we're getting ready for the podcast, I'm like, do they even mention it? Right. Like, do the other kids even know? Like it just kind of happens and that's it. And, like, I would have liked to have this kind of, everyone ensemble kind of, hey, man, we lost so-and-so. What are we going to do, pal? Like, they kind of get together, and they don't really do that. I think that was, like, the biggest problem. Like, the film has some good stuff and bad stuff, but that was part of the stuff that one of the things I didn't like. But
you're absolutely right, though. I hadn't thought about it on the conscious level. But subconsciously, like, I was realizing it, and now you brought it to the forefront. Like, absolutely. Dean, you know absolutely nothing about him other than the movie. It's a double-edged sword because at the same time the movie comes in hot. He's having a fucking dream, and the thing about his dream is it's kind of like The Further in Insidious. Like, it's the same diner he's really truly at, but it's just kind of like this crappy lighting, and he's the only one there, and the waitress is ignoring him and stuff, and then he runs into Freddy in the kitchen and blah blah blah. But like, yeah, I agree with you. The movie does nothing to make you connect with him as a person. Like the original Nightmare, you're seeing all these teens just live their life and intersect and laugh and joke and talk about tattooing girl's name on his dick and blah blah. But that they didn't do that. Not here. Like he wakes up from the dream and fucking Chris is with him, and she's all, "You look like I haven't slept in 3 days." And I mean, I just felt like the emotion and the facials were there in that scene.
Yeah, he's a good actor. I thought. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely, and Chris is pretty good too, but it's just the problem is the dialogue. And again, I don't blame this because they're reciting a script. but the dialogue was so high school drama class.
Yeah, like I would have had that. We don't like. There's no one else with him. He's just by himself, and he gets killed, and then the kids talk about it, rather than like they kind of like shoehorned everyone into that fucking diner. They say, they have like, we meet Nancy, who's the waitress. You have Quentin and Jesse, who are like friends with some other guy that never comes out again. At another table eating, and then Chris is there. I guess she's like trying to talk to Dean, or they're a thing now, and they talk about, Dean's a little upset, or Jesse's a little upset that Chris is there with Dean, and we're kind of like, what? They're throwing so much shit at us. Yeah. And then on top of all that, on top of that pile of shit they throw at us, then Dean dies. It's like, they should have just, like this is me trying to like add onto a film, which I never really do. But this is a film that I thought could have been really, really, really good. But they made such like big mistakes in certain parts. Yeah. But overall, the film was like, really good. We'll get to rating later.
So if we're going to go to the oikonomia, the economy of the film, so that you don't make it a 2.5 hour fucking ordeal, which I understand, movie companies don't want to do. Yeah. I get that. So then, was there something, because, and we'll get to this later, but was there something, and my answer is yes, that you could have cut out of the middle of the fucking movie, the drag? You could have added 5 minutes, taken 5 minutes of the middle out, added 5 minutes to the front end so we can kind of get to know this guy Dean and emotionally connect with him, and then it means so much more.
Yeah. I mean, it just seems kind of rushed. The horror ordeal seems very rushed, and I didn't like that. I thought he was like a wasted character. Great death, because it's probably the death of the film. He's there. He's like, it starts off in a dream. He goes to the back, and he's all like, "Miss, can I get some coffee?" All that shit, and we got Freddy right away, like, doing that little finger thing with the knives, which I really like. And then jump scare. Freddy slices him with his glove, and he wakes up with a knife cut, on his hand, and it's like he's doing it to himself though. And she's like, "Are you okay?" and all that crap. But anyway, long story short, he drops coffee. She comes back, and he's got like a knife. He's about to stab himself with it. He's like, "You're not real. You're not real." And then he ends up, slicing his own throat from left to right, which is brutal as fuck. And I liked it, but also I'm like, why? How come Freddy just didn't stab him with the glove? Yeah. But I like the fact that. I had told myself, because it didn't make me realize it till like way later on in the film. I was like, why doesn't Freddy, affect the real world more towards fucking with people in the real world? And I'm like, well, they kind of do, because people are thinking Dean's committing suicide, but they don't make it like, I guess, obvious enough. They didn't make it more of a point to kind of point it out. You have to kind of like, at least to me, you have to really sit there and think about it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, like, it's a real world kill, but it's in the dream, but no one else is like aware of what's really going on. I wish they would have done like something more, kind of like Freddy 2, where it's like he's really killing people, but it's not. It's like he's dreaming. I don't know how to explain Freddy 2, but it just seemed kind of strange. And then we get the opening credits with some badass fucking music, don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And props to, I believe, Steve Jablonski was the name of the music coordinator on this one. I see, that's the thing. I don't agree on that. I gotta say, like, I like that. Like, there's constraints, like, because I mean, if there's no constraints on the character of Freddy, well then he's halfway to God, and I mean, he can do anything he wants, anybody, any time. Mm-hmm. And then he's like basically Jafar the Sorcerer in Aladdin when he becomes the red genie at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, if he had that kind of power in the real world, I like the fact that he's this evil, menacing force, but he's limited to you being asleep and having dreams. If you're asleep and having dreams, is the only time he can get at you.
No. Well, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not saying like him affecting the real world as being in the real world. So I'm gonna fast forward. I like the fact that this film. One of the things that stood out, that's never been done in a Nightmare on Elm Street film, is when Nancy's, where Quentin is getting his medicine, and Freddy's, because she's been awake for so long, that she's starting to see Freddy in the real world, but it's not in the real world. It's just that she's like daydreaming, and like he's hitting shit off the counter, and I'm thinking like, wow, there's a fucking idea right there. Like that whole, like not being like a part of the real world, but the people in the real world kind of like see this person daydreaming, but like we can't see what Freddy's doing, obviously, but they see. Like I love that, but rewind. We have the funeral scene where Chris is at the funeral, and she's like, everyone's falling asleep now. Like right away, she's over there, falling asleep at the funeral, and she sees what we find out to be herself, and we get another jump scare with the Freddy glove coming out. Now, before we get to the Nancy part, what did you think about that whole funeral scene where the jump scares, were you kind of like laughing? Because I'm like, after watching the Friday films, like the jump scares are like a cheap way to try and scare you. So yeah. I was laughing.
To me, I had no. There was nothing about the funeral that stuck out like, oh, this is fantastic, or oh, this is bad because of this, and this. It's like, to me, it felt like it was what it should have been, and then I like that it opens up the mystery of how are there pictures of me when I didn't even meet him until I was this age. I thought, that, and then she sees the vision. She's having, she dozes off because she's so sleep deprived. And she sees the little girl, which the little girl, I won't give it away, but, we'll find out later. But I just thought the funeral scene was good. It was fine, everything. And by the way, going back to something you said earlier, I told you that I didn't like how slow the middle part got, and we'll get into that later. But I liked the explanation they gave in the middle part where they say when a person experiences X amount of hours of sleep deprivation, they begin having small bouts of, like, I guess, dream state or REM or whatever the fuck. Mm-hmm. And they go into that state where they can, and so that's how they're having these daytime visions. Even though they're awake, they're having these daytime visions. I liked that.
Yeah, well, they're not even having daytime visions at that point. She's just falling the fuck asleep. Like,
not at the funeral point. You're right.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, like, you had touched on that like probably 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I agree with you on that. I like.
Yeah, that to me, yeah, that's like the best. Like, that's something new that the original franchise never touched on. And it's like a real thing that they start, like, it's like it's daydreaming, hallucinating, because they're so tired and shit. It's not even daydreaming, but it's like, yeah, they're so sleepy, they start having REM sleep, like just right there, which is crazy, right? But it's badass. That's like something like, wow. I wish they would have done more. Not the whole entire film, but, do more of that because it hadn't been done before. But yeah, Chris.
Well, why hadn't it been done before? Let's think about this. If the first, let's call it the first three, were done in the mid to late 80s, okay? Now, in the mid to late 80s, the brain scanning technology they had back then wasn't like what they had in the 2000s.
Of course.
So, the scientific world.
They didn't know about any of that. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's what exactly why they should have made it a thing now is that. Yeah, without you even saying that, I was kind of like, well, I'm sure back then they had no idea about any of these things. You know what I mean? Like there's like even now there's like a scientific explanation for people dying in their sleep. They kind of understand certain things, which is scary as fuck. But they kind of like, but can you imagine being in the 70s and hearing about it? You're like, what? They just died? They didn't die for natural causes. It's like an actual gimmick, whatever it is. But anyway, Chris sees photos of her and Dean, and she's like, how do we know each other? I thought we didn't meet each other till 6th grade. I think most of them start meeting each other again, which we find out later why the game's going on. And Jesse's there, who's like her ex-boyfriend, something like that. And Chris, played by Katie Cassidy, fine as fuck, this most beautiful lady. She's there. She's like the star of the show for me. I wish she would have played. She couldn't have played Nancy because she's a blonde. She's way too hot for that, But she was a really good actress. I thought she did a great job for when she was in the film for like 25, 30 minutes.
I agree.
And anyway, so they're having to talk there, and like one of the problems I have is Rooney Mara as Nancy, the girl with the dragon tattoo actress. They kind of like this. They're trying to make sure they throw all the shit that they can at us as quickly as they can. So they're at the funeral, right? And like Chris is talking to Jesse about, Dean was talking about, this and that, and like I would have bought that if, like you said earlier, if like the first 20, 30 minutes of the film was, Dean, Chris, Jesse, and Nancy, Quentin all hanging out with each other, and then when he dies, it's kind of revealed that he was talking about all, but it's kind of like thrown at everyone so quick, and then Nancy just jumps in with a chair shot. Like, what did she say? Like, I believe you, or like, you don't know what I've seen, and like, because Jesse's kind of like shooting her down,
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's like Jesse is shooting her, and Jesse, he does the run in at the funeral, and he says, "Look, I know I was jealous, and I wasn't the best friend, and blah 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 blah, but I didn't want this to happen to Dean, and we all like Dean. Dean was my friend, blah blah. Okay, fine, whatever. You know what? I'll take that at face value, fine." And then Nancy comes in, and like I said, starts talking about what she's been going through, and because her and Chris are talking about like the dreams and blah blah blah. And Jesse, like you said, Jesse steps in and he downplays it and he tries to squash it. He's like a Soviet dictator trying to squash dissent. Like, he just doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah. He's like, he says something like, something about Chris. She's already fucked up as it is. Like saying like don't say anything about it. Which I don't like the Jesse character just because he's just there to like be like the Rod Lane, but he doesn't have any charm the way Rod Lane handed the original.
And he's just kind of a petty, bitter, kind of a jerk, kind of an a-hole.
Yeah, it's like he doesn't do, to me at least, he doesn't do anything for the film. And Rod Lane in the original, like, yeah, he was like he was a tough, the tough guy, but like he had a charm to her. You can understand why Tina liked him because he joked with her. It was like the sweet side, and he's very believable. With Jesse, it's just kind of like I don't get why we should like him, why we should care. I think he's a good actor, but I just don't have. I think that's what I have to like file these things as is like these guys. For the most part, these are good actors, but they're not given like enough shit to work with for us to care about them.
Yeah, and that speaks to like and that, again, you kind of get into the chicken and the egg argument, or who's more responsible argument, or is it society, or is it the individual, and blah blah, and it kind of leads back to that. But yeah, you can have the best actors in the world, and so forth, but if you give them bad material, they can only do so much.
Yes.
Now with Jesse, he comes off as a petty, bitter, jealous asshole and so forth. Okay, but you don't hate him, and you. It speaks to how much of a heel the Freddy character is because you're rooting for Jesse, in spite, in what he's going through.
Yeah, no, for sure. But Chris goes home, and she starts asking about like, did I know Dean before high school, all that stuff, and her mom tells her like, I don't think so, all that, and she goes and ends up eventually going through like the attic and finds elementary pictures, and like, that's when she says it. She's like, I saw a picture of Dean, and and all that, and then later on she goes and finds it, but she's like dreaming that she goes up to the attic again and she encounters Freddy and shit, and remember me. I like that. I was like, wow, but it was too many fake outs before then. But I liked that if we're gonna get a jump scare, it's because she's dreaming of Freddy popping out, and then I'm fine with a jump scare because we don't want Freddy just to see. Like, that's one thing I didn't like about the originals that I will say that this film did better is that, for the most part, we know, but we never see Jesse actually dream of Freddy. But like for Chris, she keeps seeing Freddy and he keeps fucking with her, more and more and more, and like building her up, and I like that. The same way like Tina does. It's like, you don't want Freddy just to kill somebody as soon as they see him because they're not spreading the fear if he does that. It's like, hey, Freddy needs to get you like 3 or 4 or 5 times, really scare the fuck out of you, so you tell your friends about it, and then he kills you. So I liked what this movie did as far as that.
Exactly. This movie. This is what. And remember what I said this on the Insidious 4 podcast, and it's a truism of any kind of artistic theater. The key to anything. I don't care if it's a movie. I don't care if it's a TV show. I don't care if it's a live actor theater play you go see on fucking Broadway. I don't care if it's pro wrestling. It's a simple formula.
Yeah, it is. It is.
You get heat on your heel. You build a babyface character off of the heat of the heel. It's that fucking simple.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in between all that, they have the Nancy scene just thrown in, so we can have the Freddy coming through the wall gimmick, and it looks like shit.
Yeah.
Like, compared to the original, which was released, when was the original made, dude? Like 84, I think?
November 5th of 84 or something.
Yeah. So, like, 1984, this is 2010, and how the fuck does a scene from 1984, look better than a 2010, movie? I'm like, what? I was laughing. That's one of the problems I have with this film, is that they use too many effects. Nancy, but at least we get to see Nancy, like, sort of seeing Freddy fuck with her. So that's what that's that whole thing. Now,
but it's the arrogance, though. Like, we think we've got it all. We're so much better because we've got the CIG and all this stuff, or CGI rather. But it's like, sometimes, honestly, it kind of harkens back to the Invisible Man. Like, the Invisible Man gets you in a way, like, even though it's cheap and expensive graphics to make it go that way. Mm-hmm. And yet, that gets in your head more than, like, this fucking CGI they do in 2020 or 2010 or whatever.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's a good comparison. And then we have Chris in the classroom. She starts having more dreams, and this is like one of the better ones in the film because, again, Freddy's fucking with her. I like that. Mm-hmm. And she's flipping the book, and we see the Freddy glove in the book, and I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I think that always is, like, very disturbing when they look at a book. Like, they do it in the It remake. Like, they're flipping through books. They see all these kind of fucked up things. But she sees the Freddy book, and she's like, oh, no, wake up. And then I love, like, mostly, for the most part, all of Jackie's fucking Freddy lines. Like, yes, you really shouldn't fall asleep in class. I was like, I love that, dude. Yeah, I was like, all right, so this is what we're doing.
This is how we're doing things now. No, but it's different than the stupid ass. What's her name? The cute intellectual black girl in the fourth one. Wanna suck face?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just like whatever can come off the top of your head. Like, this seems like well thought out, good puns for them. Like, he's doing the puns, but he's doing it like in a sinister kind of way. Like, because he knows like he knows what he's doing. Like, he's fucking with her. Like, you fell asleep. Basically telling her, and now I'm here. You really shouldn't fall asleep in class. And anyway, so Chris's mom has to do some kind of bullshit for the airport. She's like a flight attendant or some shit, what it looks like. And Jesse sneaks through her window, another jump scare. But they start.
And that made me fucking remember. Okay, I don't know if you remember this or not, but do you remember that show Clarissa Explains It All on Nickelodeon?
Yeah, I do remember that one actually.
Okay, and you remember Sam, the friend that they kind of teased if he would or wouldn't be her boyfriend, but he was her friend, and he always came to visit her on the ladder through the second floor of her.
I was when you started talking about that, I was like, wasn't there a person that went through the ladder all the time, or came up to the window through a ladder?
Yeah, Sam.
I gotta go and check out those Nickelodeon shows again, dude. They're pretty interesting. Yeah. So they start talking, and this is like, again, when they sit down and they start having real conversation, I'm interested. And this is one of those points where, Chris is very believable. She's like, oh my God, we're dreaming of the same man. She's telling him all that shit. Like, I don't remember the exact verbiage. Maybe you do. He says, like, I keep having, these dreams. And I think Dean was having them too, and and then like he jumps in like he's burned. You know,
yeah, and here's what it is. I know what you're gonna say, but now every time I dream, I see this man. Like you said, he's burned and melted, and he's always trying to attack me with. And then Jesse finishes the sentence, "These knives on his fingers." But it's like, okay, you're at the point where you're both having dreams of the same shit. You're finishing each other's sentences. That's how close of a connection you're having, and yet you have to fucking throw it in the trash and squash it.
Yeah, I don't like that whole denial game. Like, you know, the denial part is for like the parents. It shouldn't be for the boyfriend and girlfriend, you know, that are obviously people around them are dying.
You can feel the tension building up inside by the cover of darkness as the campfire dies. He's moving through the shadows. He can smell your fear. You won't know he's coming till he's there.
Jesse and Chris, you know, end up fucking getting getting a few squirts in, of course, you know, and she falls asleep. And this is where I have, like, of course, like I said, I'm not a hater of remakes. I'm gonna tell you what I like and I don't like. I thought the whole beginning, for the most part, was great with Chris, and then you have this kind of like letdown, Chris death kind of whole section, right? Which I thought the Tina scene was 100,000 times superior, because when I think about, and it doesn't have to copy it, but it's just like, hey, bring something new, but be good. You know, she's looking for Rufus, and you know, Freddy does, you know, to me one of the stupid lines, you know, because he kills her dog. I was just petting him, you know, but then it goes to she's running back inside. She's at a preschool, which, you know, goes to a great line I love, is when Freddy's doing like the countdown, like if he's gonna play hide and seek.
Yeah.
I thought, wow, that part was scary, you know, like 3, 2, 1, and then he's ready or not, here I come, and then she wakes up, you know, and at least she thinks she wakes up, right? And she wakes up and Freddy found you, and then he does the whole kill. But it kind of like fucked it up because she's like flipping around. Look, it looks kind of dumb. She's like flipping around or whatever. The stab is brutal, but it's like over so quick. It's just like her flying around and then like stab down the chest. Now my point, and I'm gonna let you talk, Jerry. But my whole thing is like when you go to Tina's death, like she wakes up and someone, what's going on? You got rocks being thrown at the window or something, you know, and you hear Tina, you know, it's like, wow, that's fucked up, scary, you know, Tina, and you know who's out there, you know, whatever you are, whatever, and she ends up going, you know, to outside, rainy ass alley, and then they have the fucking garbage can lid like roll and like kind of like that back then. That was like the jump scare, you know, and then she looks and she sees a silhouette of Freddy's hat, and we have that. And then Tina, and he comes with these super long, over-exaggerated arms, and you're just like, holy fuck. Like, imagine seeing that. Like, of course, you know you're dreaming when you see some shit like that, but that's the point, is like, wow, it's so over-exaggerated and crazy, and he runs after her, and the death for her is so fucking brutal, because she's like, ah, you know, and blood everywhere, and Rod's selling it, you know, Tina. And this one, it's like they did such a great character, such injustice with like a quick death, not very interesting death, other than the fact that, you know, Freddy got himself over with the ready or not, here I come. But that's just me throwing out what I think on a very important death thing that'll be like the most critiquing and most in depth I'll get with any of these deaths. But what did you think about that whole Chris death scene build up shit?
I mean, I thought it was done fine. I know it. Like you said, the part one in 1984, November of '84, one was definitely longer, more drawn out, and more built up to it. But in this movie, I didn't have a problem with it. You know, yeah, you can always be better. No matter what it is you're doing, you can always be better. You can always borrow from the past, learn from the past. You can always do things better. I didn't have a problem with his death scene. I thought it was done fine. Now, the thing I noticed just about this movie is it stands out because, like, okay, Chris is supposed to be like the Tina character in the first one, in the real first one. Now it's interesting how they do so much name borrowing. Like you got a Nancy in this movie, and
it's an over-ass name. That's all I gotta say about that.
It sure is. But she's not Nancy Thompson. She's Nancy Holbrook.
Yeah.
Then you have a Jesse in this movie. Now he's not a gay guy or a hinting at. He's not a hinting at gay guy or pseudo quasi.
You don't know that. You don't know that.
He's not a metrosexual or anything like that. He's just a fucking he's the jealous ex that used to have Chris and then Dean got her and now Dean's dead. All that stuff. And then you have with Chris, the assumption is she's a Christina, but like a Tina, and she's the first one to die. And she gets, like, in the bedroom, gets fucking dragged to the ceiling and thrown around, all that shit. So the name borrowing, the nomenclature borrowing is very interesting.
It's great. And, like, exactly, the Christina, Tina, Chris, you kind of, like, ripping them all off with the K, Daddy. So, one of the dumber parts, of course, like I said, it wasn't, you could always be better, but I thought the 84 was superior in every way with that. I understand your viewpoint, but then you have Jesse running out of there like a son of a bitch, and he gets caught like right away. It's so ridiculous. Yeah. Like to me, like I didn't have a problem with him running and all that, but like the way he gets caught, it's like so ridiculous. But he goes and visits Nancy, and he like again like they throw all the shit out. Like okay, he's gonna go visit Nancy, and he tells her don't fall asleep, and like I don't know about you, but even though I know you or Mark, if y'all came in through my bedroom window all bloody, I wouldn't go. Whose blood is that? Yeah, I would be like, what the fuck is what the fuck? You know what I mean? I wouldn't go.
And I wouldn't hate on you for that. Here's the thing. Look. If I ever murdered somebody, I wouldn't. I don't have this expectation that you're supposed to be doing all this stuff to have my back and stuff like that because okay, I fucking murdered somebody.
No, well, you should. I would still not have that. I would either laugh, but I wouldn't have that Nancy reaction, like where like I'm like, whose blood is that? I'd be like, Chris, what the fuck did you do?
As you should.
Yeah, but she like gives like no emotion. Like that's my problem. Is like no one in their right. I don't care how sleepy you are or whatever. Especially like a guy, if you're a woman, and then especially if they come in with blood, and especially someone you really don't talk to. Comes in through your window, like it's okay to like not scream, but like really like oh what the fuck, something, and then like everything's fine, everything's fine, no big deal, and like Nancy, like but that's the problem with Nancy for the most part. She actually gets a little bit better towards the end of the film, but like the first half, like she doesn't have any emotion with anything she's saying. Like she's there, and she's like, whose blood's that, and all that crap, and of course he gets arrested right away. And then, like, she calls Quentin, and she's like, hey, you said if I needed to talk to call you. He's like, yeah. And then she goes, Chris is dead.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with this character? Like, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
I'm like, why doesn't she fucking, like, have any emotion? But I'm not going to harp on Nancy, the whole entire fucking film. I already harp on Nancy on another podcast, so anyway.
Look, I mean, the thing, okay. So, the OJ trial guy in me, the Robert Blake trial guy in me, the Biggie and Tupac trial guy in me, the guy in me that watches murder, Scott Peterson, et cetera, all these murder discovery investigations, blah, blah, blah. I'm thinking to myself, okay, he was at Chris's house when she died, but the parents of Chris didn't know he was there. He came up secretly in the ladder, kept quiet, slept with her. Now, if he runs out of the house and no one ever witnesses him, bloody shirt, and he gets into Nancy's house and Nancy believes him because of everyone having the same dream, then when Colleen, whatever her name, Colleen Britt or whatever the fuck her name is, Mrs. Holbrook, Dr. Holbrook, whatever, she walks into Nancy's room And he has to leave because she's going to walk into Nancy's room. Okay, but if you hide under the fucking bed or in the closet, if you just tell Mom everything's going to be okay, then she leaves. Now, you have time to go home in the morning, burn the fucking shirt, change the shirt, throw it away, whatever the fuck, get into clean clothes, because then no one's going to suspect you because nobody eyewitnessed you there near the murder scene.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty ridiculous and then even then it's like they have a dead body but no weapon. Like, what did he how did Chris have 4 slashes across her body? And like, even if they did put him at the scene because he's got nut in her, he's just like, yeah, I banged her. I went to go walk to the store. I came back and she's fucking dead. Whatever the fuck. Like, okay, so they can't prove you did anything. You know what I mean? Like, what are they gonna say? Like, okay, he fucking Charles Xavier stabbed her with nothing, no murder weapon. He's got blood on her because he found her. Like, anyway. But yeah, I didn't like that whole little. That's just us being critics, of course. But he goes to jail, and then he has a pretty quick death scene. Like I said, we didn't get to know him enough, and we kind of like didn't like him, but he kind of is just kind of like a naysayer, which he shouldn't be because they're all fucking having these fucking dreams. But it has one of the best lines in the fucking film when he starts dreaming of Freddy. Well, it's like hey, I like how they do the little transfer or the fucking from jail to dream gimmick when it's like your parents posted your bail and he like takes off and he's in a fucking boiler room as soon as he walks out, which is kind of to me it really reminds me of a Freddy's Dead when Carlos comes out of whatever the fuck. And like he turns around and it's like a brick wall and it's his mom. Like it really reminded me of Freddy's Dead. But anyway, he sees like the dead bodies of Dean and Chris and he's like, oh my God. He's like, no, just me, And he's like he's freaking out or whatever. And I love what he says. He's like, do you think you could turn back time? Do you think you can bring the dead back to life? Or bring her back to life? And he's like, no. He's like, I didn't fucking think so. Yeah. And he freaks out. He's like, chicken shit, of course. But I'd be running or swinging. But Freddy just comes and behind him and impales him, from the fucking back to front with the glove, which is a pretty crazy death, which is cool. I mean, I dug it.
Yeah, and it has him. And okay, and here's the cool thing. Like I remember this from the 3-time seeing it now, if you include the 2010 viewing of it. But he has him hanging upside down. Did you know that when the heart stops beating, the brain stays active for at least 7 minutes?
Yeah.
I've got at least 6 more minutes with you.
Yeah, we got 6 more minutes to play. He does the Jake. Yeah, I was like, yeah, I get it. It was fucking like. They had like sprinkles of good shit on it, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't like, oh, it's a horrible scene or like no, like I like they fucked up with the Jesse character, but the way Freddy's doing his stuff is great. Like I love that whole like science into fucking horror movies. I like, did you know, like you said, do you know when the body stops working, the heart stops pumping, the brain and all that crap. Like I love that because you're like, wow, he's gonna torture Jesse for like. What it's going to seem to him like an eternity, Yeah. And after all that bullshit, there's like a library scene. It's real quick. Quentin's like doing research on I think it's Freddy or something like that, or Dreams. I think it is actually.
It's the dream state and all that shit. And so can I tell you, this is where the movie starts to put, because like if you. Me anyway, I'm going to be watching this at night, and it's like, it's already nighttime, I've already had dinner. Now, up to the Jesse kill, and then like, from here on out, for like 30 minutes, this movie like comes to a screeching halt, it slows way the fuck down. I can't stay awake from this. It's like, the mere thought of somebody researching sleep deprivation puts me to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. And I like when he's there at the computer and it goes to sleep mode. Yeah. And I love I like the way they did certain things. Like I said, I'll trash this film for what it doesn't do wrong. And I really don't do that with too many horror films. Like I'll laugh at it or whatever, but this one I'm extra critical because like I love Freddy, I love Nightmare on Elm Street, so I'm looking at it with a different perspective, especially since I've seen it so many times. But like I loved the fact that he's there, and then he's just wandering a library because to me, like for whatever reason, libraries are fucking creepy. You know, they're quiet places with nothing but shelves of books. And it's just fucking creepy. And he sees like Freddy, and he turns around real quick. And then Nancy shows up there, and they start talking about the Pied Piper of Hamlin or some bullshit like that. How they're trying to connect the story. They're trying to find some kind of like way to connect Freddy, I guess, in mythology or whatever, with because the Pied Piper had like a striped sweater and a hat and all that or whatever. And so I thought that was pretty cool. But they do eventually go to what's it called? Search through what's her called? I can't even think of her name. Nancy's mom's drawer, because it's like in between all that, like she's like, do we know a guy named Freddy and all that? And she's all like, I don't think so. And she's like so like guilty, you know what I mean? Like the
Mrs. Holbrook, yeah.
Yeah, Mrs. Holbrook. So they go looking through her drawers, and they find a school picture which has everyone there as Quentin and Dean and Chris, and she's like, why are you lying to me? Why do you keep lying? Oh, I'm not lying to you. I did this to protect you.
He's moving through the shadows. He can smell your fear. You won't know he's coming till he's there. It's triple night, Friday night. The sound of chains, the gleam of the blade. Run for your life. It's triple night.
Nancy's mom started telling that Freddy backstory, which I thought that instead of having this like bullshit part, and then of course Quentin has a dream later on, they should have just started off the film with like 10-15 minutes of like a Freddy story, to avoid having to do all this stuff. But do you remember what Nancy's mom tells her, like as far as who Freddy was and all that crap?
Oh, I do, and yeah, it's okay. There was a man at the preschool. His name was Fred Krueger. He was a gardener. He lived in the basement of the preschool, and you kids were his life. We didn't want to believe it at first.
Yeah, and like I was all like, okay, he lived in the basement of a fucking preschool, and like so they're trying to like smash in all this crap because the original, like what Freddy would do was that like he was like whatever, they didn't say what he was, right, but he would take kids to the boiler room, or basement, right, and then he would like kill them there. So they're trying to make it seem like, oh, he was a gardener, that's why he had access to kids and all that. I always thought Freddy should have been like a school bus driver because of Freddy 2, you know what I mean? Like he could have like just kept a kid on a bus and then took them where he wanted to take them, because if they're kids, they don't know any fucking better for the most part, you know what I mean? Like, and I thought that would have been a good like kind of thrown in there, but yeah, she starts bullshitting. She's all like, oh, but he left town before they could arrest him. So she's like giving like the half-ass story about all that bullshit. And I was thinking when I saw like the flashbacks, I was like, man, Jackie Haley's one ugly motherfucker. He didn't need that much fucking makeup, like he looks a lot like Steve Nash, dude, where they're like their face almost looks like skeleton like and melted, like for real. Like that to be fucked up, but like their faces are so skinny, and Jackie's already bald, right? Jackie's already bald. If they would have put like minimum amount of makeup, just to, like if Robert Englund looked that good with makeup, can you imagine somebody that's like naturally ugly like Jackie, with just a little bit of prosthetics or whatever, contact lenses?
Okay. I don't think of Jackie as being ugly, and I don't think of it so. But at the same time, I do agree. Freddy, as he's haunting the teens, and Jackie Earle Haley as he's playing Fred Krueger, the preschool kindergartner, whatever, preschool gardener, whatever. it's not a radical departure. Like, you can look at the two and you can easily reconcile the two of them. I'll say that.
You mean to tell me Jackie Earle Haley's a handsome man?
No, I didn't say he's handsome, but it's like he's not terrible looking or bad looking, and it's like, but
I'm saying he has the features that he wouldn't need all that fucking makeup. He's got a super bony face with, really big cheekbones.
Yeah.
He's bald. Why would you need to put, like, his head looks oversized, at least to me, with all that fucking makeup.
Yeah, he's a thin guy. I agree with you on that. Now, I didn't bald. I didn't know because I saw him playing, 90s Fred Krueger
with that gimmick hair. Yeah, that Ray Clay hairpiece. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know he was bald.
Yeah, so I'm like, why the fuck does he have all this fucking makeup on when, like, he would be perfectly fine, like I said, with just minimal makeup. Of course you want to make him look burned, but I mean, you don't need a fucking, like, he was CGI. I don't know if you know it, but it's like obviously, but I don't know what I'd be telling you. It's like he's all CGI. Like, you have a great actor like Jackie Haley, and you're gonna make him all CGI. You know,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's like, no, he doesn't need to be all CGI'd out or whatever the fuck. But anyway, I'm gonna stop harping on that bullshit. So Nancy goes to a library, with her fucking school photo, and she starts researching all the people that are in there, and she's finding out they're all dying. The one they actually show is Marcus, like an Asian guy, who also came out on the Friday the 13th remake, and he's talking about Freddy. Like, I keep having this dream about a guy, he's burned, striped sweater, and he keeps luring me to the basement of a preschool. So, of course, like, eventually, I don't know exactly when it is, but it's like around that point too, where
yeah, I remember that.
Nancy has a dream where she goes to that same preschool, and then
Yep.
she gets that idea, like, hey, we need to go to that preschool, but not before, Quentin goes into swim class and passes the fuck
Yes.
out, and has that whole Freddy backstory, like, thrown on our lap. Did you like anything about that backstory?
I did, actually. It's just, I mean, as someone who in 9th grade was on the swim team, and as somebody who, I can appreciate Nancy trying to brainstorm and trying to figure, I mean, again, I don't necessarily, like, from a pragmatic standpoint, I don't necessarily think that it 100% is necessary that you would have to go to the preschool to enter the dream world to then bring Freddy back in, but okay. I'm fine with it. It doesn't matter. I'm not going to, the thing is, I'm trying to train my 37-year-old adult brain to let go of every little hold on with fiction. That's the thing is, like, when I was a kid, fiction was no problem. I didn't overanalyze it. I just either liked it or I didn't like it. And in my adult years, because I listen to wrestling podcasts where they're analyzing wrestling creative, I've brought that into my brain with everything I watch nowadays. Yeah. And I say, oh, that's horseshit, or that's stupid, that's bullshit, or whatever. And, like, it's gotten to the point where, like, I don't watch action movies. I never have been an action movie guy, but I especially hate them now because I'm so over-analyzing every little thing. But I have to, in a movie like this, I have to just step back and tell myself.
I agree, yeah. I agree, because every time there's an explosion, you're like, oh, there's no way he'd survive that. You wouldn't watch, 30 minutes of Die Hard. You'd be done by then. Yeah. But no, I agree. Yeah, I don't play that. I hate people that say it doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm not really one of those people that are gonna, like, oh, if it doesn't make any sense, I'm not interested. Like, no, if it's like, if it doesn't make any sense consistently, and there's something, like, there's more problems than that, because we're watching a movie, it's supposed to be a little over the top, a little bit whatever. So it has to be like, I wouldn't love the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles if I wanted a movie to make sense, right? So anyway,
but do not ask me to watch any of the Fast and Furious movies that I want.
I don't like that just because it's stupid, because it doesn't make sense. But so they go in and they decide to go on a road trip. I love road trips, but they decide to go and try and find that preschool. And I laughed. Like, one of my favorite scenes is, like, when Quentin's like, I need to make a stop, and because he needs to get his medication and shit. Well, before all that, he confronts his dad about the fucking, because he had the dream, and he tells his dad, like, he's all like, you killed Fred Krueger or some shit like that, and He's like, where'd you hear?
We were 5. We would have said anything.
Yeah, he's all like, the cave? Did you ever find it? And he's all like, no. He's all like, you killed an innocent man. You know, and I thought I didn't like it, but I was just like, why would he right away go to like, why would he think Freddy's innocent? Like, because to me, I'm thinking like, okay, let me put myself in like again, it doesn't have to make sense, but let me put myself in those shoes. Like, if I'm dreaming about a guy like trying to kill everyone, and he's already probably killed 2 of my friends, he's probably a fucked up person. Even if he's doing it like after like the dreams or whatever. Like, and if you don't remember, I mean, is it your fault? Is a little kid at fault for lying at 4 or 5 fucking years old anyway? You know what I mean? Like telling their parents like someone's molesting them or whatever, right?
Especially like here's the thing: it's like if you really want to get deep on it, if you really want to get like realistic analyzing on it, and this is why again you have to be careful with fiction movies because if you do too much reality analyzing, you're gonna not watch any fiction film ever again. It's the thing is okay. If I'm Freddy, I'm not blaming the kids for what they said they went through or whatever, even if they lied. I'm mad at the parents who organized this whole thing to chase me out of town and burn me alive.
Yeah, exactly. That would have
Why isn't he haunting the parents?
Yeah, that would have been a good add-on to it, right? Like he fucks with the parents and the kids, something like that, right?
And by the way, Quentin's dad plays one of the detectives in that Fox series they had about Biggie and Tupac murders back in 2018. So I knew I recognized him for something, and I didn't think about it.
Are you kidding me? Quentin's dad? You're gonna go with Clancy Brown and not mention the Shawshank Redemption?
I forgot Shawshank Redemption. You're right, but that's Mark's movie. That's Marky Dangerously movie. But
dude, the Shawshank Redemption is the greatest movie with a black guy narrating the whole time I've ever seen, besides Driving Mrs. Daisy. But go ahead.
Oh, it's a good fucking movie, but it's like Morgan Freeman, anything is good. But the thing is, he was in that Biggie and Tupac murder movie mystery thing.
Of course, he would go with murder mystery gangster instead of Shawshank Redemption. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
I didn't know they made one, but I gotta. Oh, you know what? I did hear about it. Is it a recent one?
Yeah, it's from 2018. It's on my Google Play. You can watch it.
I'm gonna get it over now. Now if I can watch it tonight. No, yeah, I love Clancy Brown. See, like, I'm glad you brought that up, Jerry. Because I had wrote notes. I'm like, have you noticed it? Because you haven't mentioned it, but there's no Lieutenant Thompson.
No, well, of course not. Because okay. Nancy, they're all they're doing is borrowing the names. They're not borrowing the prototypical story.
There's no Lieutenant Holbrook.
No, there's no Lieutenant Holbrook. There's no Lieutenant anybody because the thing is, all it is they took the name Nancy, put it on a different type of character, and then her mom is some kind of other type of doctor, but not any kind of thing that has to do with this.
Yeah.
And her mom is Dr. Gwen Holbrook, but it's
she's a doctor? Is that what she is?
The Wikipedia page said she's Dr. Gwen Holbrook.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck she was. I mean, I know she wears glasses, but I didn't know she was a doctor. But
and here's the thing. That actress that played Gwen Holbrook, the mom, she was in the, forgive me for saying it, but she was in the OJ series on FX about, she played Faye Resnick, who was Nicole's, close friend before she died. But OJ hated Faye Resnick because she was a big coke addict, and he felt Faye was making Nicole a coke addict.
Great. So after all that, they go and make that road trip, right? And my favorite scene is like when Quentin's trying to get like a prescription, like he has a prescription or he has a refill for his prescription, I should say. And like I love the guy, the pharmacist, the Paul Karam.
Yep.
He's like no selling. He's like no selling this kid's request. He's all like you're all out of refills. He's all like I've been taking this since I was 15. And like the guy's supposed to, like, if he's a teenager, he's probably like supposed to be like 17, probably, right? He's like, I've been taking this since I was 15. Just fill it up. He's like, just give me a few. And the guy's all, no.
but that's the thing, like that kid, and he's saying just fill it up, and he looks like that. Remember
a junkie and shit.
Yeah, remember what you and Jason were talking about with Jesse? He was like that junkie new wave kind of look. That's what fucking Quentin has. He has that junkie look. On even though he should be a good-looking kid, but he's with the bags under his eyes, dark circles and shit. Yeah. Now, when he says, "Just fill the prescription," you know what that reminded me of?
Huh?
fucking Carl Bruner in the movie Ghost. And he's just give me the check, Sam. Just give me the check.
Oh yeah, when he's over there fucking gonna kill Demi Moore's character, whatever.
And
Yeah.
Whoopi,
Go ahead.
and Whoopi Goldberg, he's like, just give me the check, Sam.
Yeah, just give it to me. Yeah, he does look like he's fucking going insane almost, right? But Carl Bruner, I forgot his name. Carl. And then like Nancy's in the car, and she's like fucking tripping the fuck out. And I like the jump scare kind of thing where like again, this is when she starts. When I mentioned it way earlier, she starts like daydreaming, whatever, having that REM sleep while she's still awake. And Freddy like rips off the door, throws her out the car. She's like crawling into the store and like slices her. Like, wake up, you're bleeding. But that whole little section, I thought it was like amazing. I'm like, wow, this is good. Like I'm like, this whole ending, like I forgot how good this was, and that kind of like brought me back into being a fan of this movie. Seeing like how Freddy was like chasing her, you know, like while she was awake, and they end up going to the hospital. And to get her to treat her wounds. And do you know who that doctor is that's trying to get Mrs. Holbrook, Dr. Holbrook, to sign those release forms? You know who that is?
No, who is that?
It's April O'Neil from the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, dude.
Are you shitting me?
Are you shitting me? Oh yeah.
Are you fucking shitting me?
She's so fine. Like it's funny when I saw her in the movie as a kid. Like I didn't see, because I guess it's like I'm not into curly hair or whatever. And I was like, why did they pick this April O'Neil? And then you see her like fucking damn near literally 20 years later. I'm like, wow, she's like a beautiful lady, and she's 20 years older. She's like in her 40s, right? And yeah. I'm like, wow. Like I guess you get older and a little bit of straight hair gets you over, but. April O'Neil, man, she's a doctor. Quentin ends up stealing some adrenaline shots and bust Nancy out of there so they can take off because they're trying to put her to sleep. And I like that finally they start having really, Christopher J says, like, really good conversation, because they start talking, they're like, oh, try and keep me awake. And Quentin's all like, how come you never went out those times I asked you or whatever? And she's like, I really don't fit in, all that crap. And he's like, well, once this is all over, like, I'm going to take you out. And she's like, what if I say no? And he goes, why don't you sleep on it? I started laughing, dude. I was like, yeah. I was like, yeah. Yeah, I was like, that's what they should have done with all the characters the first 20, 30 minutes of the film. And then when they would have died, we would have been like, no, not Jesse. Like, now why my Richie? All that bullshit. But they end up crashing in front of the preschool, and I laugh because they're looking for like the secret cave, like you were saying. Did you ever find it? And they find it like within like 2 minutes, because like the parents never found it. These fuckers find it like right away, And then when Nancy's having that whole dream at the pharmacy or whatever, she ends up pulling out a piece of Freddy's sweater. So she has this idea that it's like, hey, we're here, let's make a stand, let me go to sleep and pull them out, just like the original.
Yeah.
So they go ahead and do that. Nancy goes into her dream, and of course, Quentin falls asleep first.
Well, no, Quentin, before he fell asleep first, he took, those old school public school paper shredders that teachers had in the...
Yes, that's what it was. Those big old chompers. I was like, I remember seeing those when they used to cut like that fucking paper. I forgot what kind of paper it's called, but yeah, they used to cut like all the paper back then when we were in school.
Construction paper.
Construction paper, exactly, dude. Yes. They used to chop it up, dude, with that shit. So I was like, I've seen that before. I can't remember what it's called. Just like a pencil sharpener. Not too many kids see that nowadays.
Yep.
But Quentin goes to sleep first, and Freddy, slashes him and shit. You can't save her, all that bullshit. And I was kind of like getting a Dream Warriors vibe, because she's all like, Freddy. She starts calling him out. He's like, your girlfriend's here. I'll be right back. And I was thinking, like, so did Nancy like do a Dream Warriors and go in the same dream as Quentin? And I was like, well, that's pretty cool. Like they should have done more of that, or at least a little bit earlier, or at least saving each other. Like one of them's got that power or whatever to bring them together. But I guess that might have been too early. And
at the same time, though, okay, so Nancy goes involuntarily by herself, and Quentin's there to bring her out. Like I said, he falls asleep too. But at the same time, like, fuck. Man, I had a thought here. It was so well planned out, and then I fucking forgot.
It's all good, dude. But so she calls out Freddy. Whenever you remember your thought, just jump on in. But yeah, she, Nancy confronts Freddy, and I laugh, like all the stuff Freddy, says to her. He's like, what game? He's like, found you. He tells her, found you. What game do you want to play next? And she goes, fuck you. He goes, sounds like fun.
Oh, that's what it was. He said, fuck you and all. Sounds like fun. A little fast for me though. Why don't we hang out for a little bit?
Yeah, why don't we hang out first? I was like, I love that shit. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I love, like, that's funny, mean Freddy, dude. We need more. We need more of that shit. Like I like that. Like he's like really mean and demented, but like he's fucking with them. And that's when Nancy like runs away, and she ends up being like back at her house. And I thought that was really cool because like they kind of go from like Freddy being like, well, the nightmare gimmick, but they're in the house, and then he goes from being Freddy to Michael Myers when she's hiding in the closet. And then he pops out of the closet and goes boo, and I was like, okay, I don't like the boo part. Like I was saying, like, oh, I hated how, I'll say Tina, how Chris's death wasn't as good as Tina's, but they try to like copy it, but they didn't do a good job of it. I love the new reimagining of, how when Nancy went up the stairs and it was kind of like whatever, that the stairs were like quicksand. Well, Nancy's running through the hallway and it's blood, like that's like sloppy blood. Like I was like, wow, that's cool. Like I like that way better.
Talk about a wet dream.
Yeah, that's what he says. Yeah, he's like exactly like he's doing like the perfect throw-ins in there, and then of course she like falls through the ceiling, ends up on the bed, and Freddy. He goes, I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
I know, it was the perfect inverse of the fucking first one, because like instead of you're my girlfriend now, Nancy, it's I'm your boyfriend now, Nancy.
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, exactly when he said that, I popped for it because I wasn't expecting it. And it was like, oh shit, they threw it in. Like that's how like it didn't seem forced. It seemed like. Like we're giving a nod and a wink to the original, but we're making it our own. We're adding a little bit of flair to it. We know the line. We know the line itself is over, but how do we fit it in appropriately without forcing it? You know what I mean? So I loved all that shit, and he's there doing all that bullshit. Like he tells her before all that, he's like. Because he shows up with like her like schoolgirl dress or whatever the fuck that she wore as a kid. Like, it was always one of my favorites, and all that bullshit, and you can't wake up, because I made sure when you fell asleep you'd never wake up again. And that's when Quentin like shoots her in the chest with the adrenaline shots that he had got earlier, and she fucking wakes up with Freddy, and they have their confrontation, and then that fucking paper shredder gimmick thing is like the main weapon.
and remember, Quentin stabbed him in the back of the leg.
Yeah, well, like scissors or something, right? I don't know what the fuck it, or a piece of glass. So I know they stab him in the eye. I don't know if it was in the dream. Oh yeah, it was.
Nancy did that. She stabbed him with scissors in the eye. He pulls it right out and no-sells it. Yeah. And then when Quentin gets involved, he has just a plain knife, stabs him in the back of the knee, and then that's when Nancy uses the paper shredder thing to cut off his hand.
Yeah, he's about to fucking kill Quentin, and then she chops off his hand, and I was like, oh shit, well that's all she wrote for Freddy. She's like, hurts, doesn't it? It's because you're in my world now, bitch. Does Freddy say bitch to anybody in the whole film? He doesn't, right?
Not that stuck out, no.
Yeah, I don't think he said the word bitch, so I think it's funny that Nancy said it, like she finally got, because Freddy's always calling girls bitch. So it's it's cool now that she's like like Hertz does it because Freddy had said something about like you can't hurt me in my world. He tells her something like that in one of the dreams just a while ago, and then she's like, "You're in my world now, bitch." So she grabs the lantern, decides to burn down the little preschool. The cops don't question them, of course. They just get taken home, and the best part of the fucking movie like from the original, for y'all that remember, Nancy walks through the door and everything's fine, and she's like, it was all like, oh, it's a great day, whatever the fuck, and then Freddy ends up pulling her through the fucking door, and it looks like shit. Well, this film has this thing about fucking with people. It's like they do things so fucking wrong to me, and then they go and completely redeem themselves by probably having the greatest ending in A Nightmare on Elm Street of all time. Like, to me, bar none. Like, it's number one. Is Nancy goes home with her mom, and she's like, and like, I love the way the mom's like, okay, I want you to go straight up to bed. I'm like, oh, what a thing to say after all this crazy thing, going on. And then she's like, Mom, I know you were just trying to protect me and all this and that. And like the mom puts down the keys and like looks at Nancy, and then she like looks up, like the mirror in back of her is like Freddy in the mirror. And she fucking just screams, fucking knives through the eyes, and pulls her from, like fucking present world into the mirror, and like all the glass and blood go back into the mirror, and like Nancy finally does some real acting, like probably does like her first real scream, or at least it feels that way, screaming her ass off, and I'm blown away, like what the fuck just happened? Like, if it's like having this biggest, like the pop of the night at the very end, dude.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's like you think everything's gonna be okay, you think everything's gonna be fine. Her and Mrs. Holbrook, or Dr. Holbrook, or whoever, Gwen, they get home, and then she tells, go upstairs, get some sleep, it's going to be okay. They think they've defeated the arch nemesis, the enemy. And then Nancy looks in the mirror in the foyer, sees Freddy, and then Freddy reaches right through her skull. It's like, fuck. But that's to be expected, though. That's the thing with horror movies. Horror movies, as they used to say in wrestling in the babyface in the territory days, horror movies are a heel territory. Seldom are you gonna have the crowd go home happy that the babyface won, and it's the same thing here. Fucking Freddy, at the very end reaches through Mrs. Holbrook's head and does something, and it's like you were holding on hope. You thought they won, and lo and behold, it's the same thing with Ghost Ship when Epps wakes up, thinks everything's okay, the spirits are free on the boat, blah, blah, blah. And then she wakes up and sees the evil guy leading all her former friends to carry gold off the ship.
You had to throw Ghost Ship in there, huh, son of a bitch?
Yep.
But, I thought it was an amazing ending. Like I said, I was, hopefully I explained to you guys why I've had a love and hate relationship with this film, because it has, like, a lot of flaws, of course, like all the other films. Even like the Freddy ones that that I like, love or whatever. But it's like they've been around for so long that I kind of like look past them. And like this film, it's been around already for 10 years. And I'm like, no, I like this film. Like, when you look at it, you're like, well, damn it. When you look at it from like a standpoint of like, okay, let's just pretend there was no other Freddy movies. There was just this one. You would say, wow, this is a badass movie, right? So I have to try and look at it that way and stop trying to be one of those people that like, oh, well, this, that, or whatever. The original was better. Like, if you're doing a cover or whatever, it's like, does it sound good? Yes or no? And like this one, I really do like this film. I think Nancy has her problems, even if there wasn't the Nancy before that, they would have their problems. But it's a good film. It's probably, like we were talking earlier, and I was telling you, I want to hear your ranking, the once and for all ranking. We only have about 3 minutes left on the show. But, like, I'm going to throw it out there. Like, my favorite film is Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and then Part 2, then Part 1, and then I would say the remake, dude, And then you have, 5, probably 6, or 5, Freddy vs. Jason, New Nightmare, and all the other ones after that. It doesn't matter. But, as far as for me, it would probably be about number 4, but how do you rank this one with the others?
I'm going to put this one as number 4 because this is exactly what a Nightmare on Elm Street Freddy movie should be. It's, you're focusing on people's inability to sleep because they're so afraid of what's going to happen if they do fall asleep. Sleep deprivation for fear. I would say number 1, number 2, number 3 in exactly that order. Then this one. Then I would say New Nightmare. And then I would say 5, 6, and 4.
Yeah. And what about Freddy vs. Jason? Where would you throw that one?
I forgot about that. You know what? Then I would probably put this Freddy vs. Jason after this one.
Right? I've come to love Freddy vs. Jason a lot more. Even though it's horrible, cheesy acting, like a lot more after watching the Jason films. But we'll get into that once we get to the last Jason film. But anyway, anything else you want to add to this podcast?
No, I agree with you on that. Freddy vs. Jason, it's an early 2000s movie. Mm-hmm. And as such, it's going to have probably that Scream, scary movie feel to it. But at the same time, like I said in previous conversations, I can appreciate Freddy vs. Jason more in the context of having seen the first 4 Jason movies, the Friday the 13th.
Makes a difference, for sure.
No, absolutely. So I would say this one, this Nightmare remake, I mean, it's sentimental to me because it was the first Freddy movie I ever saw, but putting that aside, I like it because it's what a Freddy movie should be. It's the victims of Freddy being afraid to go to sleep and thus suffering sleep deprivation because they don't want to have those nightmares where he's in control of the game at that point.
Mm-hmm. Just want to add before we go is that Kevin Bacon was he was right there with Jackie Haley about to. It was down to those two as far as I understand to be Freddy. I would have loved to see Kevin Bacon in the film. He looks very similar, those skinny faced guys, to play Freddy. So I would have, and then he's taller and he's got that like Jackie's got the voice that the working voice, but Kevin's got like that naturally like creepy voice, So I would have loved to have seen Kevin on this one.
I'm glad you said it. You reminded me that I forgot that I had even said this, but you're right. I remember a few weeks ago when I saw this movie again for the first time in 10 years, and I saw it and I said to myself, this is like the Hollow Man.
Yeah, you did say that, yeah.
It's true because it's like it has that kind of feel to it. It's that kind of creepy person that sneaks up on you when you're not expecting it. And it has that Hollow Man. Like, if you watch Hollow Man, once you get past the halfway mark and you see how Kevin Bacon's fucking with people in ways they're not expecting.
And he's wearing, like not like a mask, but he's wearing something so we can see the facial of him, so to speak. And, like, it kind of looks like Freddy, like, where, like, they just have the outline of his face and... he's a creep, in that film. It's great. And I would have loved for him to play Freddy. And, Jackie's a short guy. I know Kevin's a pretty tall dude. So, I always think about all that bullshit. But A Nightmare on Elm Street 2010, it's definitely gone up and down there for me as far as one of my love and hate, but I think finally now it's right there, like a little bit better than being in the middle. It's probably, like you said, like we both said, top 4, which I'm glad we kind of agree on. The top, the first 3 to me are kind of like interchangeable. Sometimes I love the first one the most, the second one the most, the third one, but this one's like right after that, along with Freddy vs. Jason, and the other ones are. I think everyone agrees that the worst one's Nightmare 4.
And 4, 5, and 6. Period. You can't identify with suffering, with pain, with how evil Freddy is because, like, nobody in those movies is so scared to go to sleep because of what's going to happen in their dreams.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they kind of seem just kind of exaggerated horror films. They're cool, they're fun, but they're not like the original 3 and then this one. And anyway, hope you guys enjoyed A Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. Maybe one day we'll come back and do like a retrospective and just kind of like talk about all the films, do a ranking a year, 2 or 3 from now with Mark after that motherfucker decides to watch them again and give his real opinion. But again, hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.